welcome to episode number 39 of the 11FS Spotlight. I'm Gwera Kiwana. In this weekly show, we shine a spotlight on the best and brightest in tech and financial services. We try to understand what gets them going, growing, and what they think of the future of the industry will look like. On today's Spotlight, I'm delighted to be joined by Andy Bromberg, CEO of Eco. Andy, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Really excited to have you, really excited to talk to you today, actually, because today's show, we're going to be talking about Eco and the democratization of cryptocurrencies. So let's start off with a 1-minute elevator pitch for Eco. Can you just give us an elevator pitch, please?
Yeah, absolutely. Eco is a consumer financial product that offers you better benefits than anywhere else you can put your money. You deposit your dollars in, they start earning 2.5% APY, and that goes up to 5% as you refer friends. And you can also spend money at major merchants, Amazon, Uber, DoorDash, Instacart, and get 5% cash back. And there's much more coming. We're launching a bill pay product, and we've got other features coming out to really try and replace your bank. We talk a lot about unbanking users. How can we get people to leave their banks and move towards a better, smarter money system? And that's what we're doing. And ultimately, a lot of this, as you alluded to, on the back end is powered by crypto in different ways. But what's really important for us is that that's not front and center. Most people don't care about that. They care about the benefits that this technology can offer them. And so we focus on what those benefits are, giving you this amazing APY, this amazing cash back, all these benefits, and keeping the technology on the back end where users can't see it.
That's great. So yeah, putting the customer first, really. That's awesome. Can you tell us a little bit more about what made you decide to found Eco?
Yeah, I think it's really about an understanding that the existing financial system is not serving people. It's grown kind of on top of itself in many different ways. And you've got these old systems just stacked on top of each other. And the system's gotten really complicated. The financial system is not built to serve users. It's built to serve all the institutions that are participants in it. And Eco's trying to build a better future, a future where your money is actually working for you, a future where the system is aligned around the community rather than being aligned around the institutions. And that's what we wanted to do. And I think that starts with just building a better financial product for people to use.
Okay. And I really want to put a pin in Eco as a business because I'm really fascinated by what you've built. But I want to hear a little bit more about your journey to Eco. So I understand you've co-founded Sidewire and Coinlist as well, and you're quite involved in the crypto community as well. Would you mind just sharing a little bit more about your experiences and what's led you to this point?
So I got into crypto back in 2012 or 2013. I was studying at Stanford math, computer science, and had this amazing professor, a guy named Balaji Srinivasan, who ended up being a partner at Andreessen Horowitz and then founded a company called Earn, which he sold to Coinbase and was the CTO there and is now an investor. But he was my professor at the time. And we ended up starting, along with about a half dozen other people, the Stanford Bitcoin group. So this was pretty early days, not the earliest days, but pretty early days of crypto. It was just Bitcoin at that point, really, and spent a few years doing a lot of advocacy work around Bitcoin in kind of 2012, 2013, 2014, research work, built some projects. That was an amazing experience. Then I ended up leaving school, started a company in the political media space called Sidewire, ran that for 3 years, and then co-founded Coinlist, which some of your viewers may know. It's the platform for the best token sales, a platform where the best digital asset projects run their token sales, and offers an exchange and a bunch of other business lines as well. Operated that for 3 years, and then in October of last year, came over and took the reins at Eco full time, and been doing that ever since.
That's cool. So tell me a little bit about some of the learnings that you learned while you were at Coinlist that were really valuable at Eco.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many. I think both kind of operational and about the crypto space, but focusing on the latter, I think the number one thing I would call out is that, we looked at so many projects at Coinlist. While I was there, we vetted 4,000 crypto projects and ran token sales for about a dozen of them over that time. And what I realized was that, first of all, there's just a lot of garbage in the space. A lot of projects in crypto are just bad projects, don't make sense. Or, there's a lot of scams and fraudsters as well. And so you got to watch out for that. It happens in every new industry, but I think crypto's been hit with it in a particularly acute way. But the other thing that I noticed in a really meaningful way was that, well, so much of this infrastructure, even the best projects, were building these amazing technologies and creating these amazing services that could offer really meaningful benefits. no one was building things for normal people. Everyone was building things for crypto people. And by the way, I think that's a totally viable strategy and really effective. And that's how the best new movements get started. If you think about the beginning of kind of the personal computing movement or internet, even in general, of course, the first customers of those services are the early adopters. So that makes sense. But I think what I saw over the last few years was everyone just serving the crypto community, which is valuable, but it feeling like it was time to expand out of that, to expand out to the rest of the world and offer these benefits to everyone. And that's what I wasn't seeing happen in a really tangible way. And so for me, a lot of what Eco is trying to do is bring those benefits to everyone. And how can we do that in a way that helps people understand what's going on, makes them feel really good, feel really confident, and explain these really challenging, novel concepts to people in a way that they understand and speak to them at their level. And so a lot of what I saw at Coinlist informed what we're working on at Eco in terms of bringing that to everyone.
That's really great. Yeah, so really democratizing crypto and bringing the value that crypto brings to other parts of the community, to people, to actual human beings. So with that in mind, who is the target audience? Like who are your desired users really?
Yeah, for Eco, it's really everyone that has a mobile phone and a bank account in some way, and then eventually expanding to even those that don't have bank accounts today. But right now, what we want to do is take people who have a bank account and are getting really poor upside from their money, really poor benefits from their money, and move them to a better system. And so that's everyone. And we're trying to reach that audience of people and tell them how this existing financial system works, educate them, which is a huge focus for us, explain what's happening with their money today, because most people have no idea what happens with their money when they send it into a bank, and then show them that there can be a better way. And so that's what we're focused on. It's a really broad audience. Of course, there's kind of different subdivisions and different personas that we can start to market to in different ways. But at the highest level, it's everyone who has their money in this broken banking system that is not putting their money to work for them.
Yeah, I imagine, like crypto is something that, it's now it's mainstream. It's being discussed at dinner tables. In my own family, my mom keeps asking about crypto, and I'm like, who is telling my mother about crypto? So, I mean, I think it's definitely, it's for everyone really. So, as if we step back and look at Eco as a business, how you guys are doing things very differently and trying to really shake up the space and democratize, finance really, and really change the fabric of the financial services industry. So can you tell me, how do you guys make money? That's simple and plain. How do you make money?
Yeah, so our focus right now is on building a business model that aligns us with our users. And I don't mean that in kind of a buzzwordy, loose sense. I mean that in a really deep way, that what we're trying to do is change these existing rent-seeking business models and build something that aligns us with our users. And to that end, we actually have a lot more to share about this in the future that we haven't talked about yet and won't quite yet, because one of our tenets, one of the things that we really focus on is this idea of taking people one step at a time. So we're talking here on the show to an audience of people that understand fintech and talking about democratizing crypto and how we can bring crypto to everyone. But when we talk to our users and to our audience, we actually really don't mention crypto all that much, because people don't care, they don't understand, or they don't trust it. And I think there's an important analogy that I would draw here, that when you use, let's say, Robinhood doesn't say, send a Fedwire transaction to put money into your account and then buy some shares and they'll be stored at the DTCC. Like, none of that is shoved in users' faces, because at the end of the day, what users care about is the benefits that are offered to them. It's put your money in, buy stock. That's what people want to hear when they use Robinhood. Yeah. And in the same way for Eco, what people want to hear is put your money in, earn amazing APY, get cash back, have all of your money in one simple balance that's earning rewards all the time. And we don't need to, at first, explain everything that's happening behind the scenes and even really talk about crypto. So if you go on our website, we've got this sequence of posts where we talk through Eco's model and what happens. It's a half dozen or maybe 8 kind of consecutive blog posts. And we don't mention crypto until the 6th or 7th one, because that's the point at which people have built enough trust that they're willing to hear crypto. And so for us, our business model is ultimately designed to bring us in alignment with users. And we've got a lot more to share soon about how we're doing so. But right now, what we're really focused on is just providing the best possible benefits to users, putting their money back to work for them, and building a system where we are working on their behalf.
Yeah, I think I'm a big fan of making the back end just look like a swan over water, just lots of kicking going on beneath. But all the customer really knows is the simple things, like using simple English even is really, there's companies like Monzo, for example, who have made a deliberate choice to use words like money instead of funds to help really familiarize people with banking and get people comfortable. So I mean, with crypto, what is your biggest concern or challenge when it comes to getting people familiarized and comfortable and trusting of crypto? Once those discussions do happen with your customers.
I think it's just the knee-jerk reaction. That's really the hardest part, because once we are able to start explaining it to them, it makes a lot of sense. We're able to walk through how, in a lot of ways, crypto is like cash. It's this bearer asset that you can hand to someone without any middlemen, which means lower transaction fees, which means faster transaction times versus traditional payment rails. And once we can start walking through that, it actually does make sense. The argument is correct on its merits, but the hardest thing to get over is that initial knee-jerk reaction of, whoa, crypto. And it ties back to what I was saying earlier about learnings from Coinlist, that I do believe there's a lot of garbage in the crypto space, and people know that. And so when you say crypto, a lot of people's reaction is, whoa, I don't know if I trust that. I don't know if I believe in that, because I've seen so much bad stuff there. And so what we found is we really have to be deliberate about building that trust up over time, giving them these benefits, educating them, making them feel that alignment that we have with them before we start to broach that subject. And then once we have that, we can get over that initial hump of hesitation and get into the really interesting, meaty pieces and help them understand why this is actually better technology for their money.
It's really cool. So that's really, it's a journey, really. So let's talk about democratizing of finance, really, in financial services. I guess cryptocurrency is a nice little added in there. But so this is something that democratization is something people have been talking about for so long. Robinhood democratized stocks and trading and all that. But like in the crypto space specifically, what's been stopping people from being able to like build these kinds of services and tools?
I think there's a lot of things within crypto. One of them is just it's new technology. And so a lot of the work that's happening is on the technology itself rather than on the interfaces for people. And again, I think it makes sense. This isn't a surprising or weird or unusual thing. Of course, in the early days of an industry, all the energy should be focused on making the technology as good as possible before it crosses that chasm and goes and reaches a broader audience. And I just think now is the time. I don't think it's a massive failure of the crypto space. I don't think it's surprising. I think it's natural that we had basically a decade of building for the early adopters before now crossing over to everyone else. And I think it's the energy there. And then a related piece of that is just the people in the industry. And we're seeing more and more really talented consumer product builders come into the crypto industry. Obviously, we're heavily recruiting at Eco for product people and engineers, marketers, and everyone from traditional consumer products and consumer fintech. And in the early days, it was a lot of people that were just obsessed with crypto for crypto's sake. And I even think about myself back in 2012 or 2013, all I cared about at that point was the deep, weird, wonky crypto stuff. That was the most interesting thing for me, and I was obsessed with it. And it's only now that it feels like it's ready to make that leap over to everyone else. And that's because a lot of innovation has happened. That's whether you look at things like stablecoins, which are obviously a really important bridge for the rest of the world to start using crypto infrastructure. Those have not been around, at least popularized, for forever within crypto. And so you see that sort of infrastructure, you see some of this DeFi infrastructure that's coming out. You see better ways for consumer key storage to happen. There's a whole bunch of technologies that have begun to emerge that are making now the time for it to make that leap over to the consumer.
I just want to pick on the stablecoin piece. I'm pretty bullish on stablecoins, really, and crypto that is pegged to fiat currencies or commodities even. What do you think is going to be like? Name probably one of the wildest use cases for stablecoins that could bring like crypto into the mainstream.
Well, I think I would actually say the uses for stablecoins, at least from my perspective, are almost by definition not wild. But that's what's most interesting about them. Stablecoins, at the end of the day, are payment rails for existing currencies. They're not new currencies. They're not new assets like Bitcoin or Ethereum. A stablecoin is just a payment rail for a currency. If something's pegged to the dollar and you can move it around, that's a way to move dollars around, whether kind of real or synthetic dollars. And so I think stablecoins, if they really work well and are able to scale on different chains and with different interfaces, could just steadily take over more and more of what we use existing fiat payment rails for. And that to me is really the focus for stablecoins, is just providing a better payment rail for everything. There's no reason that many different products shouldn't be built on stablecoins. So you can talk about specific use cases, whether that's remittance use cases obviously are a big focus for a lot of people, whether that's kind of more frequent, smaller settlement transactions. Those are certainly a use case that a lot of people talk about. But at the end of the day, it's just a really effective payment rail for existing currencies.
Yeah, that's great. I've talked a lot about how stablecoins can be helpful on the African continent, in the global South, where a lot of folks are underbanked or unbanked, and stablecoins as a means to fight against things like currency devaluation, or allowing for savings vehicles that weren't there before. So there's a lot of misconceptions floating around about cryptocurrency. It's new, it's complicated, it can be quite intimidating. How can Eco approach how can Eco approach it to make it more accessible and less scary for the average consumer?
I think it's all about just explaining to people exactly the pieces of it that they need to understand and speaking to them at their level. And I know this analogy is a little bit overused in a lot of ways, but I'll use it for one specific purpose here, which is thinking of crypto like the internet. In order to use internet services, in order to use a website like Facebook or Google or Amazon, you don't need to understand how the internet works. You don't need to understand TCP/IP and what SSL means and what all these different pieces mean. It's just not important. But you're using an internet product nonetheless. And I think when you're in the early days of an industry, which crypto has been, everyone's focused on understanding the internals, understanding how the protocols work and what the details mean and what the long-term benefits can be. When you start to, again, cross that chasm to everyday consumers, those people don't necessarily need all the insight into the middleware, into the stuff that's close to the metal. And so a lot of what we're doing is just explaining to people the pieces that they need to know, talking to them about the benefits, less so about the features, and dialing in on that. And again, I think that's just it's a natural progression. But I think a misconception about crypto that we see a lot is that crypto is all one big thing. It's just one big blob, and everything in crypto is kind of all the same in some way. And again, I think if you look at kind of the internet analogy, yes, Facebook and Google and Amazon and NewYorkTimes.com all run on the internet, but they're wildly different products and used by different markets for different use cases and have different business models, even though they're built on the same fundamental technology. And crypto is the same way. All these different assets have totally different use cases, are built for different audiences, and that's okay. They just happen to be on the same technology. Obviously, we're just talking about stablecoins. Obviously, a stablecoin like USDC and a store of value asset like Bitcoin, yes, they're both built on a blockchain, but they're not used for the same things, and they're not used by the same people, and they're not used in the same ways. And I think that's okay. So solving that misconception and communicating to people just about the specific benefits of the pieces they are using, rather than treating it all as one big space that you need to understand entirely in order to use anything, is one of the biggest things we're trying to fix.
That's really great. I might steal some of that at my dinner table tonight with my family to better explain crypto, because a lot of people tend to approach it as, and I do approach it as this massive, really, and I want to get in the weeds and talk a little bit more about the details of it. But yeah, sometimes it's nice to just step away and just really just plainly explain the benefits. Okay, so with big banks taking steps to enable crypto to flow through their networks, is it a big step toward democratization? Are you worried about these big banks becoming your competitors?
Am I worried about the big banks becoming the competitors? Not really. I think, the banks in some way, yeah, of course they are competitors. We are alternative places to put your money and, use your money. And so it always depends on how you define competition, but their business models are just not set up to compete with new services like Eco. And that's fine. This is how, things go. This is how disruption happens. It's when incumbent business models start to fray and fail and new business models come in to replace them. And so is that competition? Absolutely. Is it tough competition against well-capitalized competitors? It is, but it's also not the sort of thing where I think they're going to integrate crypto and all of a sudden level up and offer a better service than Eco, because they're operating under the constraints of an old business model. And so that to me is the most important thing, is understanding the long-term incentive dynamics of these different businesses and whether they're able to compete on a new playing field. Will they be able to offer incrementally better services and start to pick things up a little bit? Sure. But they'll always be playing with this handicap of not having a well enough aligned business model. And that to me is the biggest difference between us and them.
That's really great. Yeah, I think we're moving toward a world where people really are going to be more specific and targeted in their services. And we won't always have to just pick the big bank that my granddad banked with and stick with them. So that's really cool. All right. So as we're coming toward the end of the show, we want to finish by asking you one last question, which you can answer however you like, related to fintech or not. You can make it fintech related or not. But what's some advice you can give to your younger self, or to someone who is starting a business in the crypto space or fintech space in general?
Yeah, I think probably the biggest thing if you're starting a business in the crypto space or fintech space in general is there is so much to learn. And every time you think you've gotten to the end of one of these roads or idea mazes or understood something, you'll realize that there's so much more behind that. The number of people operating in financial services, fintech, crypto is enormous. And there are so many specializations within it. And so I think the advice would be, the biggest thing you need to understand is the problem spaces that you're operating in, and then going and finding the best people in those different problem spaces to talk to and understand. Because, reading on the internet in a lot of industries gets you a lot of the way there. In the fintech space and in the crypto space, there's just too much depth. You need to talk to people with the real expertise. And, just take one example, payments. There are people and businesses and consultancies who specialize just in payments infrastructure and have spent years, decades working on payments infrastructure, thinking about payments infrastructure, understanding all the nuances of how money moves around. And that's just not the sort of thing you're going to be able to pick up from reading a few articles on the internet and understanding how payments work. So understand the problem space you're working in, the specific sub areas within crypto and fintech, and then go out and find people, get them on the team, bring them on as friends, advisors, investors, whatever, and lean on them as resources, because I think it's extremely hard to quickly ramp on everything that's happening in these spaces. There's so much innovation, and there's so many decades of infrastructure that we've built on that you can't get up to speed quickly enough, and you need to surround yourself with really smart people.
That's really great. Yeah, Twitter is a great way to do that. I think I found that people are super willing and open to share and learn from each other. So that's really great. Can you shout out some places where people can find any communities or groups where people can find these communities?
I think Twitter honestly is the best place. Like, go and look around, see what people are talking about, look at who people follow. Go and if you find a great fintech person who you think knows their stuff, go and see who they follow and start following those people and reach out to them. I really do think, to your point, that's the best place to do it. You'll start to then see some of the same names popping up over and over again, the same consultancies and same investors and same individuals. And then obviously you can go in a more targeted way. But if you're just starting out and you don't have a lot of context, I think Twitter is the place to go. Cool.
And just before I finish off, what's next for Eco? You mentioned that you're hiring a ton right now. What's down? What's in the roadmap? Can we get any juicy info?
Yeah, I think for us, we talk a lot about how we're building one single balance to save, send, spend, and make money all in one place. And so it's all about adding more features there. How can we make it so you really do have one simple place where you can manage all your money in one place without any headache? And right now, that's savings on your money that you put in there, and it's cash back at a few major merchants. But how can we expand that? How can we let you spend anywhere? How can we let you do things like pay your bills? How can we let you send money to friends? How can we let you do all sorts of things in a single place? And so that's a lot of what our roadmap is about. And then also kind of revealing more about our business model and how this thing's going to work in the long run. And yeah, to your point, for that, we need a lot more people on the team. We're hiring aggressively. So I welcome your audience to check out eco.com/jobs if they think there might be a fit.
Awesome. Thank you. And thank you so much for joining me today. Where can people find out more about you and everything that you're up to?
Yeah, well, certainly eco.com is the best place to go right now. It's everything we're working on is there. And then I'm on Twitter, Andy_Bromberg. But eco.com is really the best place.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All right. So that's all we have time for this week. Make sure you follow 11FS on LinkedIn so you never miss an episode, and go visit the 11FS YouTube channel where you can catch up on previous episodes. Have a great week, everyone. Goodbye.